Good evening to everyone. I'd like to start this meeting of the Natural Resource Board for Tuesday, September 5th, 2023. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for everyone. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Dr. Carrier.
I'm here.
Ms. Billman. Here. Dr. Mosblick.
Here.
Mr. Carano.
Here.
Mr. Stadelman.
I'm here.
Ms. Ware.
Present.
Ms. Callahan. Present. Ms. Haggerty.
I'm here on Zoom.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks for everybody for coming today. Can we get a motion for the approval of minutes for August 1st?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Tom. Can we get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Can we get a voice vote of aye for approval?
Aye.
Aye.
A voice vote of no for nay? Minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 5, announcements. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make here?
All right, Charles, I have
Okay,
some.
Ms.
All right,
Gordian?
I just want to fill you guys in on the Treasure Coast Waterway cleanup. I believe I had sent you the information, but just to kind of recap, because we weren't all together when we received the information, but the results from the last cleanup were very, very, well, I would say good, but we're talking about cleaning up trash, so good, not really good. For Indian River County, 0.42 tons were collected, and there were 182 people just for our county. In total for the entire event, excuse me, there were 3.47 tons collected, and there were 1,146 people who attended the event. And for our event, we had 0.15 tons and 88 attendees. So it was pretty good event.
That's really great. I mean, not really great that we picked up so much garbage, but 88 people this time. That's a lot of people getting out there. A ton of garbage in one day is not something to be very proud of, but
proud that we can come together and
yeah, everybody came together and we were out there and digging up garbage. Does anybody have any other comments for the for the waterway cleanup?
If you guys are interested, there are some unique items that were collected during the event. One was a complete boat, approximately 17-foot LOA, stranded up in the mangroves at the Jimmy Graham Park and Boat Ramp. There's a 2-seated paddle boat, guitar strings, a boat bow, mattresses, an 8-foot ladder, and a necklace. So some really quirky stuff. I'm sure at the next cleanup we'll find some even more interesting stuff.
Well, we've heard of leave no trace, bring all your stuff back, but at least bring your mattress back home. So we would at least appreciate that. I'd probably like to recognize the passing of Jimmy Buffett as an announcement, seen with Mel Fisher in the connection here, and real sad about that. Anybody else have any announcements? All right, is there any public input? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have any agenda modifications? Item 6. All right, seeing none, we'll go to item 7, public input. Would you like to speak? Anybody?
Hey, how are you guys? My name.
To the mic up.
Introduce
yourself, who you are, where you're from.
I have to be to it. Is this okay? Yeah. How are you guys doing? My name's Connor. It was mentioned to me that you guys are needing a website. Connor. Ruff. RUF. It was brought to my attention that you guys could possibly use a website, and I'm here offering to donate one to you guys. Me working with a lot of these restaurants, it was understood that you guys are also working with restaurants, trying to start like a recycle project or some sort of cleaning project with the restaurants. I probably have some that you guys weren't talking to, and vice versa. You guys probably have some I wasn't talking to. And as a way of providing online orders, I have a way to also fund possibly something that you guys could use or could want to do that could better our community, because I'm totally down to expand on an idea and offer a bunch of input and possibly financial backing with the back of my company.
Does anybody have any questions or anything?
I have a little statement just to say that originally our Sustainable Sebastian, we had a goal to have a program called Litter Quitter, and I think that's what you're referring to. And that was started by Keep Brevard Beautiful and the Brevard Zoo. Both of those entities lacked their funding, but they had the website for people so that they could go to a restaurant and ask the restaurant's participation in the program being to stop using plastic straws and styrofoam kind of products and encourage the customers to bring things, encourage the restaurants to use alternate products. And we were, they were partnering with, like Don's is a company that would provide alternates to plastic cutlery at a cost, a reduced cost or a special cost just for this purpose. And so it was kind of introducing restaurants, asking them to participate and telling them the benefits that they would get and keeping track of that. The website would be used for keeping track of the restaurants that agreed to participate. And then there was a check and see. So once they agreed, someone would go back and verify that indeed they were doing whatever level of participation that they've signed up for. So the website would need to have the list of people, it would need to have a variety of public input. So whoever is volunteering to go to the restaurants, they would need to have logins. Mm-hmm. They would need to be able to, there's two forms, one that would be related to, hey, I went and talked to this restaurant and here's the outcome. Another one was with regard to going back and verifying once they agreed, keeping track of status of all those. And it sounds like whatever you're saying, you would be able to do.
Yeah, everything that you would need for that website to do, it can definitely accomplish. And I would like to offer my own second, possibly taking a step further for the action. Because I also live here and I do agree it is dirty and there's a lot of pollution. And I would like to swim in that river too someday again.
Anybody have any other questions? The only thing I would recommend, because it's a business that you're running, is to apply to the city to be maybe a preferred vendor. And that would be one of the first steps you could do, and they may have other avenues open for you as well. And we have our web design people as well, and you're welcome to talk to them as city employees. You know, you're welcome to come in during any business hours and ask for anybody at the clerk's office. But yeah, try to get on the preferred vendors list for sure.
Preferred vendors list for
City of Sebastian. Because that would be the process that we would use too, to engage anybody, because we're not allowed to just take something from the general public in lieu of, hey, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so start with that process too, and we'll see where it leads.
Nice.
As far as 2024, or 23 to 24, we have now our approved list of things that we're trying to accomplish for the rest of this 5 years plan cycle that we're in, but maybe we could have this for agenda late next year to have the thought of bringing this whole litter quitter concept. We can call it what we want, because litter quitter was somebody else's name.
Is there any other comments? Thank you for coming today. We greatly appreciate your input.
I just wanted to thank Connor too, because he showed up at the Centennial Committee offering his services.
We need more participators.
And I just suggest that he put his name in the hat here. So.
Fantastic. No, you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely, and I appreciate it.
I went right up to the clerk's window and said, what can I do? And
So-
this is where I ended up.
Where do I start that for the preferred vendors list? At the clerk, right?
For me, I would just go right to that window and ask them for a preferred vendor application, and you would give them your business information, and they would process it from there.
Cool.
And then there's a process for that, to get
Okay.
on the preferred vendors
And
list.
that starts tomorrow, obviously, because she's not there right now, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
Alright.
yeah, no, it's, you'd have to come in during regular hours.
Thank you. Well, I
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Any additional public input? Anybody on Zoom?
Nobody's raised their hand.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 8, unfinished business. Other than what's listed, is there any other unfinished business anybody can think of? Item A for Sustainable Sebastian, current task list. And I think this is the new list that we've been printed out. We like this list. We can see this one. And goal updates from the champions of each list. So if you want to take it, Ms. Cordian?
Well, I figured what we would do to go over the tasks list is just kind of start from the top, go through each of the sets of goals. If you guys have any feedback or, each of the champions would speak about, what's going on so far for the task, any insight that they have regarding the particular tasks at hand. Maybe there's something I need to change on the tasks list, or just insight that you might have gathered from your work on the tasks thus far. It's based off of the meetings that I've had with, all of you so far. So it's not complete by any stretch of the imagination. This is just for, okay, this is our first steps. If there's something that's missing, we can keep adding and layering in, and then as we go, we'll check these boxes off. But I figured that this would be a good place to start, and then we'd go over that, and then between now and the next meeting, I'll know what I need to do, how this list needs to be adjusted, and how we will move forward.
Do you want me to go over these, or do you want to go over them?
Maybe goal
Briefly?
is next,
Okay.
and then, go to that champion.
Okay, a lot of what we're doing is referring to the Sustainable Sebastian initiative done by the City of Sebastian, the City Council. These goals that they're referring to, the first one are goals 1 and 2, the reduction of single-use plastics. You discuss procurement of current items with staff, create comparison sheet from office data and providers of possible alternatives. Find out who distributes information to event vendors or hosts of other events or on city property. Develop a template for information packets to be given to vendors, hosts in conjunction with the comparison sheet. Host a workshop with city staff to discuss intentions for changes and receive input, and develop outreach for staff on how to reduce single-use plastics. That's pretty much that in a nutshell.
Ruth, I have your PowerPoint set up for you, so if you want to come and breeze through that, or I can hand you the clicker, whichever you prefer.
Okay, and then next, does anybody have any discussion for goals 1 of 2? Ms. Billman?
I just have something, Ruth, you've got the goals 1 and 2, correct? Yes. I have a question, as far as like here in the city, and with using like single-use products, do you have access to lockers here for staff, where they can bring their own plates and silverware and their cups? And is there some way that they can wash these things somewhere with hot water and so forth, like a kitchen that?
So we do have our little break rooms. Each of our facilities has one. I'm not familiar with what PD's facilities looks like, but we do have here at City Hall, and then also at the compound, there's each a break room, and actually there's 2 break rooms, one on each floor of City Hall. And, there's a kitchen with a basic refrigerator, sink, microwaves, and, cabinets for holding reusables if we do have them. A lot of the cabinets are full of single-use items, such as single-use styrofoam cups and plastic utensils. But there are some, particularly here, there are some, maybe a few reusable plates and mostly a lot of reusable mugs or cups. But I don't believe that's the case at the compound. I think at the compound they're only using single-use items unless individuals have brought their own items. And some people do have their own cups or mugs that they use regularly, but those might be kept more personally, might not be kept in the, common areas.
Well, the reason I asked is I've worked at places before where everyone had their own servings, their plate, their bowl, their mugs, their silverware, everything. Even if they wanted to bring in a paper napkin, a cloth napkin, that would be like taking it to the extreme. But where everyone had their own thing, they kept it in their locker. When they came in, they put their food on it, heated it up, and then washed their stuff and put the stuff back away. Just a suggestion. Okay.
Is, that microphone working?
Hello?
There we go, we got it now.
So we met, I know all the groups met, but in our meeting, we first did some breakout assignments. So you see initials, and I see everybody else has those too. We targeted a couple of things to do first, feeling like they were the rate limiting steps for
Papa John's, it's closed. What, baby? Papa John's, it's closed.
what we would be getting done. And so one of the items was first to come up with, material that we could go and talk to people with, the educational material, whether it's going to be that we're making changes within city council, whether we're going to be having a meeting again with, help me out, the thing that you're president of, Rotary, right, whether we're talking to Rotary and the businesses or such, we wanted to have some material. Secondly, the other important thing, and Ms. Haggerty's tagged with it, it was to get that comparison list. I think Dr. Carey had first done a list, but we're updating it and seeing what might be available pricing today, and also reaching out to the vendors that were before in the Litter Quitter program and any new ones, and just saying, hey, will you give us your pricing for it? And so with that kind of information, Felicia was going to go and do, and she's already done, looking through at City Hall and what's being used. So we get the pricing, then we can start looking and getting that in for costing information for the city to make purchase of those things, slowly phase out, have the conversation with the city employees, talk to them, educate them, try to encourage them. Certainly we will take away single-use plastic kind of things for them to use. But the other thing is that we want them to encourage them to bring their own and do that. So we're heading that direction. And the other thing is the material. So before you'll see several pages, and it was the list of things I thought might be included in what we want to share and help with educational, no matter what group we're talking to. And so, talking about first the resolution, talking about these two goals for the initiative that we have. What are they? What can they do to help? And so if we're talking to restaurants or businesses, there's that list of things that they can specifically do. And we have a list of suppliers. Now that will probably be updated to be whomever Ms. Haggerty finds out. And we will include the list of the alternate pricing, and that will be added in this information. And I envision that we can perhaps ask for budget for printing of something like that poster or table card. So a poster would be hanging somewhere, and a table card would be at a restaurant or something on the table where all the guests are. And perhaps even a window sticker that looks like Sustainable Sebastian. So those are the things that I think we can get budget for, maybe for those, the card poster or the sticker, and offer to them with the rest of the information. So the information would be someone like, one of us having the conversations with the business, having the conversations in City Hall, and including this information. So I bring it to you to say if you have anything else you think would be helpful to include, please let us know. This isn't, this is kind of a rough draft to getting forward, our step forward. And so that's where we're at right now. Any questions or any additions?
I just wanted to add that now in Walmart, you can buy these compostable materials. So I don't know where that stands on your list instead of, reusable ones. compostable is also another alternative,
They are alternatives,
and
right?
it's readily available at Walmart.
So Ms. Haggerty, I'm hoping you're taking note, and so all the items that we can add in alternatively.
I am, and I think the only thing with especially businesses and even the municipalities is when you are purchasing on a larger scale, typically going through some kind of purveyor like Cisco or Ed Dawn is much more cost effective. So when you say we can buy stuff at Walmart, for a business, it's going to cost a lot less to buy in bulk through basically whoever also, Walmart buys in bulk, and so it just makes sense for restaurants to buy in bulk.
But you'll be getting the pricing anyway for alternate products.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes.
Do you have any additional questions for Ruth? Ms. Billman?
I just have another suggestion that might be worth looking into. When you're visiting the restaurants, maybe it could be like a little sticker they could put on the menu, encouraging them to bring their own to-go containers and even like their utensils and stuff. And they could have like maybe a card that they could get punched to get some sort of reimbursement back from the business, sort of like thanking them for doing your part so we don't have to throw things in the garbage. Like they have like the free ice cream cones if you do 10 cones or whatever. But if you come into a place often enough and you go home with something in a styrofoam container, or if you come in with your own silverware or your own utensils or your own cup, maybe you can get free refills if you have your own cup, different things like that. So.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I just have a quick comment. I happened to be at Captain Hiram's over the weekend, and I noticed that they had napkins with plastic silverware, but at the same time they had plates that were not styrofoam. So it might be interesting to chat with them as to who their vendor might be. And I didn't think of it at the time. I apologize. I probably should have. But there's at least one waterfront business that's switching away from the styrofoam into a different option. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ruth, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that. That was a very well thought out presentation. And again, this is a work in progress. And it's that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, it really is. And we are moving right along. Does anybody else have any additional questions for anything on there? Okay, that's goals 1 and 2, reduction of single-use plastics by Ruth Callahan. We'll move on to goals 5 and 6, native landscaping. We'll go through it real quick. Determine current maintenance practices used by staff at our parks and properties. We are going to find out what exactly has been purchased for previous native plantings, use criteria for prioritization to develop a list of priorities to discuss with NRB and leisure services, identify from field units, visits, areas for improvement and development of possibilities and implementation of each, and coordinate with leisure services and other necessary departments on implementation and long-term maintenance. Who's the champion for that?
That's Sherida.
That would
Ms.
be
Sheridan?
me.
You want to do a presentation today, or you can wait till next time? It's up to you.
I can just talk. Don't have the presentation stuff, but,
Well, I noticed you got a nice page here on the back.
well,
Right?
yeah. Well, I mean, you can read. You can read it, but long story short, yeah, I did a visit of all the city parks, like I said, and I was really surprised with how different they all are. And I kind of got the feeling that the city is wanting to go with more like all native. So that's what I've been focusing on, is like with the native plantings and so forth. And after visiting all the different parks, I narrowed it down to just go ahead and do Garden Club Park. The thing that's interesting about that park, to me, it's like it could be a jewel of a park, because it's something that's driven by every day. Well, everyone goes by Barber Street. So it's something, when I've been here like 10 years, and when I first got here, it's like Garden Club Park, it looks like, I was really surprised that it was called Garden Club Park, but there's like, why? So I thought it would be really kind of neat to kind of focus on that park and do some native plantings. And as it turns out, there's one of my neighbors was doing a whole yard with native plants. It's a new build, and they literally have gotten rid of all of the turf in the backyard and the side yard. And when I went up to visit the nursery up in Melbourne, the Butterfly Garden Nursery is a fantastic place. It really is. But they were doing that installation that I drove by every day. And so I talked to the homeowner, and they were just thrilled with what was transpiring in their yard. And so long story short, there's so many different plants that could be put up there. And by taking this area that I have outlined on the map, you'll see there's a little yellow building there. I think that is is that the pergola? Yeah, that's the pergola right there in the front. And to the left of it is the flagpole, and there's this whole open area, so it gets a lot of sun, and it's very visible from the street. And behind it, that purple dot, is the gazebo. So my thoughts were, it's kind of a big project. I don't know if the city would go along with it or not, or what our funds are. First of all, it's like when you drive by this park, it doesn't do anything. I thought by painting everything white, drawing attention to it with the fences, the pergola, and the gazebo, and then to have the native gardens sort of like beds with the mulch paths going between them. And but that would be an area that we have to talk to Leisure Services. That's the main thing here, because irrigation is a big problem with any installation. We have to be able to water these plants until they get established. Now, the natives, once they become established, they seem to do fine. But anyway, that's kind of my proposal. The other thing I thought is worth checking into is also make it more accessible. Right now, you can't walk in on Barber. You have to go to either side. There's a little gate there. And it's just not like, oh, let's just stop here. It's like, oh, where do you park? And you get there, it's like, oh, I have to walk all the way through here. So my thought was to possibly put in some parking spaces along in front of the fence on Barber. You could put, because the sidewalk's on the other side of the street, you could put like a crosswalk somewhere along there to get you to the park. And then around the lake or the pond itself, I know you've driven by, but it's really choked with weeds. So I was kind of, how would you say, conflicted. It's like, well, what is the city doing? You have like Easy Street Park is totally clear of every sort of aquatic vegetation. And then you have this park, which is like choked with everything you can imagine. And so I don't know quite what the city envisions for the water features of our parks. But anyway, there's just so much that can be done here. There are some beautiful aquatic plants that I didn't even see them here, like the duck potato and the, what's it called? It's the purple one. It's a spike. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, there's all kinds of like flowering aquatic plants that can be put around there, even cattails for that matter. But anyway, then in addition to these beds up in the front, I would like to have some of the larger native trees, like the mahoganies, there's some elm trees. There's a lot of large shade trees that you never see anywhere because they're really, I don't even know if they're on our, the elm and the mahogany, I don't even think they're on our list of trees for code trees. But for people to see what these trees look like, the possibility of the size of these trees when they mature over 20, 30 years would be really impressive. So this would not only be a demonstration garden, but also a learning garden. So that's kind of my input.
Good work. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Billman? Ms. Callahan?
I think my question's more back for city, and that is, my recall was we had budget that was discussed a couple of meetings back that was set aside to be used for maybe green infrastructure as well as some of the plants and such. Am I correct in my remembering?
That's correct, yes, there is money set aside. With the new fiscal year, I have to check into seeing what is going to happen to that money because we are coming close to the new fiscal year. But I will.
Is that October 1st?
Yes.
Do we know what funds we have remaining in September for this end of this year that we, for, that it is dedicated to Natural Resources Board? We had some remaining funds, not much, from our Labor Day, Arbor Day.
We do have, it was just over $800 that was left over from Earth Day, so we can put that towards whatever else we need to, within the remainder of this fiscal year. And unfortunately, I'm still kind of getting used to how the money situation works when it comes to the fiscal year. Does the money roll over? Does it disappear? Does it get reallocated? Because I'm still in that learning process, I apologize. I'm, still familiarizing myself with what needs to be done and what needs to be used up by each year. So I can find out for you, absolutely. And as far as I know, it was the 800 from Earth Day, and then we had the 15,000 from that Lisa had set aside specifically for the native plantings and LID purposes. So this park could fall under that, if we're trying to say improve the quality of the vegetation around the lake or the pond and the vegetation throughout the park itself, that could fall under that purview. I mean, we might even be able to, if we wanted to take it there, we could maybe include some more LID specific elements into it, besides just maybe just not just a demonstration garden for the purposes of, aesthetically pleasing, but maybe functionally a step above just the simple native planting, which it would still have a wonderful function as its own, but maybe there would be a way to, like rain gardens, for example, would be a possibility of including in that.
And do you know if we have, so every year we keep getting Tree City USA. Mm-hmm. So you have to plant so many new trees. Mm-hmm. So in coordination with that, does the city of Sebastian have a budget, do you know, for the purchase of said trees?
If there is a budget, it's not something within my department. It would likely be within Leisure Services Department. So that would also be part of our coordination with them. And I am aware from talking to Antoine Van Meer about Leisure Services, and he is very interested in promoting more of the native landscaping on city property. And he, I believe, has some money, I'm not sure what amount, budgeted towards, park improvements that could be used towards native landscaping. So our collaboration with Leisure Services, one, is necessary because it is Parks Department, so that is their realm. But also for the fact that if we can collaborate with them and get on the same terms about maintenance going forward and that sort of thing, that is going to be key for the survival of whatever we do, whether it's Garden Club Park or any of the other parks in the city.
So I was looking at, for the stuff related to items 1 and 2, which I'm not trying to go back, mm-hmm. but printing is not a huge expense, I don't think. And going in and deciding what you're going to buy for City Hall is going to be an ongoing thing. It's a replacement, but you already have money set aside, and now you're going to see what might be different with that. And that, I don't even think we need to touch an NRB budget for, right? But when we start looking at what Sherida's presenting here, like $250, is it something we could say, hey, we could get those folks out and at least get a plan from them? Is that something that we can decide today, or use the $800 for today and then coordinate in the future with the leisure group on trees and Tree City kind of stuff, and if we need and if you would find out, if we still have that 15, what of the $15,000 that was put for the fiscal year that we're about to end, how much of that can carry forward, is allowed to carry forward and report back to us? Because I think then we could maybe use some of that to implement whatever Sheridan's plan involves with this group. That's my comment.
Ms. Haggerty, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, which I have never seen anybody at that park, so I think doing something with that park is an awesome idea, and I'm also want to apologize that it's loud at my house sometimes. I was curious, do we have a garden park?
Yeah, the garden park's on, Barber
do we
Street
have a garden
across-
club, a garden club?
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Do we have a garden club?
It's called the Garden
We
Club.
do have a
Park,
garden
isn't it?
club.
Yeah, and.
We do, there's a function of the women's club that is garden club. I
They
know
were
that
on
one.
US 1 there, weren't they?
I'm sorry, what did
They
you
were
say?
in a place on US 1 there for a while.
They're still there.
Don't
Still
they,
there, right.
don't they have a little patch in also Hardy Park?
I don't know.
I did notice at Hardy Park, they did have a butterfly garden there, which was probably put in, 10, 15 years ago. It's pretty dilapidated and it's not maintained at all. And
Somebody does maintain it to some degree. I live right down the street from there. I was just curious, what is their function, if it's called Garden Club Park?
well, that's
do
the
they
park
have
on
some-
Barber, just west of the sports complex on the right-hand
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, I know. I'm just asking, does it actually have to do with the garden club, the park?
I'm not really sure. Is it actually run by the Garden Club?
I have no idea.
I'm not really sure.
I doubt that it's being
Maintained.
upkept by
Yeah,
them.
there's no care going on there.
No,
I
there
did
is not.
understand, and I tried to get hold of Nikki Monroe. She's with the Master Gardeners, and she may have some contacts of a group that could maybe help maintain things after we're done, if that's a possibility, to make it more like a community park as opposed to a city park. You think about other municipalities that they have these lovely little gardens, and they don't all have to be natives. I mean, I love all things growing, and so there could be other aspects to it, but I know that this sounded like the city wanted to focus on the natives, so this was my proposal for natives. There are all these other parks, I mean, you can't put enough trees in, as far as I'm concerned. And I think I spoke to Felicia about this. I thought it might be kind of a cool idea. The Royal Ponciana, I know it's not a native, but to me it's one of the most spectacular trees, and they're loved trees when they're in bloom. And I thought it would be kind of cool if every park in Sebastian had a Ponciana, to kind of give the city a little bit of an unusual aspect about our parks. Every tree has a Ponciana, because when they're blooming, they're wonderful shade trees. They are deciduous, but everyone knows them, but they're not a native.
Anybody have any more questions?
I just have a suggestion.
Hold on one second. Ms. Haggerty, did you want to finish?
It's okay. It's okay. She can
Go ahead.
I just know, because I'm in that art club all the time, that the parking lot there's no shade on that parking lot whatsoever. And it already has irrigation. It would be easy to spend $800 and put trees all around that parking lot, and the irrigation's there already. So it's just a suggestion.
Any additional comments on any of that?
I do want to add that part of the reason why Sheridan and I started discussing Garden Club Park in particular is because, as I mentioned, I think one meeting back, there is a young man who is looking to do his Eagle Scout project at Garden Club Park, specifically at the pergola, and doing some native plantings around the pergola. So that's where some of these ideas started to spur from, okay, if he's already going to be doing this project with the assistance of the city, maybe what else can we piggyback off of and just keep expanding the native plantings, and his would just be, just the start. And Garden Club Park is one of, I believe, 20-something parks that we have in the city. So we have quite a long list, and there are many things that we can do with it. And I have plenty of ideas of my own that I may discuss with Sherida at some point. And one of the things that we do have to keep in mind as we're moving forward with this is that we still have Tulip. We still have to work on the Tulip Pond project. That's still in the works. It's been kind of slow going. We're trying to get it into gear. We want to finish it out and make sure we keep our grant to finish out the project. So that's in the works right now, and that's something that we're keeping tabs on. And I'll keep providing you guys updates as, I find out what's going on with the project. I know that there one of our biggest issues was the FPL hookup for the fountain itself. So I'm unaware at this point in time what, if all the connections have been made, if the fountain is in place yet or not. And then we still have water quality testing to do throughout the project. So once Tulip is completely done and out of the side, it'll make it much easier, although we are absolutely discussing, Garden Club and trying to figure out what to do moving forward, while we still have Tulip in our hands as well.
Well, the pond, the Garden Club Park is on the pond, so they can get irrigation from the pond. So it shouldn't be that difficult for them to irrigate one spot, even if it comes to the city doing it. I'm sure the Eagle Scout could help with that too. I mean, it doesn't take engineers to do that.
Well, this is all just starting out and, real preliminary. And, whether it ends up at Garden Club or Tulip Pond or where we're going, it's really good work by everybody. I mean, getting out there to visit all those parks, it's a lot of work, let alone, talking about single-use plastics, native landscaping. Is there any other questions for Ms. Billman?
I'm curious, who?
No? Okay. Did you have anything else to add?
Yes, and then I guess I might be jumping ahead. We didn't really talk about this, Felicia, about the connectivity aspect of my landscaping part. I remember seeing little stands on different intersections that had like something that said about a bike trail or whatever through the city. Is that still something that's going on, or do you know anything about that?
Are you talking about the, I think they were like Pelican Path or Pelican Trail signs that had, depictions of maps of trails within the city? Is that what you're referring to?
It's been several years since I've seen them, but what I wanted to kind of ask about, it would be kind of a neat thing to do, since we have all these parks that are all scattered throughout the city, and some of them are really cool, and you wouldn't even know they're there. And they're kind of stuck back in residential areas, and there's no sidewalks or anything. But it would be kind of nice to have like a park trail, if you will, the city park trail, where you can, just do a circuit and start at one end of the city or wherever you are, and you can just kind of drive through and visit all these little parks. And as a thing to do as a family, maybe they could park, which one is it done at? I think it's Periwinkle Park. It has a nice parking lot. It's shaded. It's got a cute little pond in there. And that would be a good starting point for like one of these, bike trips throughout the city. So there's several areas that have adequate parking where you could actually do like a nice bike ride through the city and see it, because there's a lot of parks.
Would you like me to comment on that? Because we went to that meeting. That's what they talked about, was the sidewalks and the bike trails.
So what Charles is referring to is that there is a meeting with Indian River County. They are working towards their next bikeways and pedestrians plan, master plan. And so Charles, myself, and Ross Kelly, our GIS tech, went to the meeting, and it was just a very preliminary meeting to discuss, any areas for improvement that, the municipalities in the area might have for them when they're going into developing this plan. Now, this is going to be a plan for the whole county, so I'm not sure how much focus there will be specifically on Sebastian. There may be areas of Sebastian that they may be able to help provide advice for improvements, but that is going to be part of that discussion.
Well, one of the things that I noticed at that meeting for this connectivity is that it's all coming down from the top. There's a federal movement. The federal movement goes to the state goes to the county, and that's where it stops. So basically, when we went to this meeting, there was like 5, 6 pages of everything what the county's doing, and oh, by the way, there's some other municipalities in there called Sebastian, Indian River Shores, and Fellsmere. That was basically about it. There's like a little bitty paragraph mentioning all of us, and it's not done on purpose or anything, but it's mostly because been isolated. We're not really at the table. They were kind of surprised to even see us there. Sebastian, but it's a federal thing actually. They have a whole transportation plan that they're going to do, and it's in play right now, and it basically stops at the county level because they're the ones who are doling out the money, and so if you're not at the table, you're just not going to have a voice. So we got to get to these meetings at the county level, and we need to do something about getting Sebastian's voice out there because they're improving the sidewalks. They're going to put in the bike trails. They're going to put in all this. That's what they're saying. They're going to do it right now, and they got the money. But like I said, there was only one little paragraph that I seen that mentioned all 3 municipalities. But other than that, it was okay. Is there any other discussion on goals 5 and 6 for
Also,
native
if I can
landscaping?
tag back onto the whole connectivity part of this discussion, is that the human connectivity, the green infrastructure, biological connectivity, the stormwater connectivity, and the native landscaping, those 3 things are very much interconnected. And so there may be ways that through Sustainable Sebastian, we can improve not only awareness of our trails and pathways and whatnot, but actually create more pathways, through the green infrastructure project and through doing a walking audit. We'll discover more areas for improvement, areas that are, hey, why is there no sidewalk in this area? Why is there no path to get from this park to this park when they're right next to each other? Things of that nature. We'll discover all of those things through this process. So, and we'll discuss more of that as we get through the rest of the goals. But it's just something to keep in mind because you'll notice that, like you kind of hinted at it, like why these things are really interconnected, and we just have to kind of keep that in mind. It's built into the way Sustainable Sebastian.
Well, I was really surprised at the amount of work it was going to take just for a crosswalk, and that was.
I wasn't sure when I started doing this. It's like how much of this project is kind of falling back on the city. Is this something that the city would kind of help us with, or something that maybe city council needs to be involved in to kind of bring this whole thing together? Because I know with parking, sidewalks, crosswalks, all of that stuff, irrigation, I mean, that costs money to do that. So that's not part of our grant money, I'm sure. And then how is that grant money divvied up? Do we have to pay for labor to do this stuff, or can we pay the butterfly nursery to do it? I mean, they're more than adequately suited to, they can do the whole thing. They can do the installation and everything, but we can also use that demonstration garden as for a template for other parks that we can do later on. So it's not money, it would be money well spent to have their expertise in doing this. So.
Any additional comments on any of that?
I'm curious, in
Ms.
the parks
Haggerty?
already, like, whatever is already at the parks, who has done the landscaping for what's already existing? Is there somebody within the city that's their job?
Parks and Rec, and yeah, that's like our normal
leisure
Parks and Rec
services,
people.
Is there somebody who specifically takes care of just landscaping?
That's the only people that do
I guess what I'm
our
asking
city.
is do we have to outsource that job? Or is there somebody within the city whose job that already is? That if we said, we want to plan a native garden here, they already know how to do that?
I don't think we have an answer for all of that right now. We can come back to that, though. Does that be okay? All right.
Yeah.
Any additional questions on native landscaping, goals 5 and 6?
I just have a few quick questions. Is there existing irrigation there, or would it be completely setting up a whole new irrigation system? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure there's no irrigation there right now, because when you think about it, there would be sprinklers going on. There's never a sprinkler on in a park. I've never seen a sprinkler in the city, to be quite honest. I don't know if anyone else has or not. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know. I thought maybe it was happening at night, but I guess. And then my other question, the $250 here that you have for the Florida Native Butterfly Gardens, is that just for the plan and design for the garden? Does that include any materials, or that's
No,
just
that would just be for them to come out, do an assessment of the property, and then do a drawing, and then make a list of the plants that they would recommend.
Okay. So you don't have any idea what no, I guess they would have to go through the plan, but
Exactly.
yes, okay. And then, the $15,000 that you were mentioning before, Felicia, is that, I want to say that I remember that being part of, or it was being set aside for the Tulip Pond project? So that wasn't the grant money,
That money was set aside in addition to the fact that we got a grant from Tulip. It wasn't connected directly to the Tulip Pond project.
Interesting. So I'm wondering if with October 1st being are we going to lose our money? And so, I mean, I think one thing I really love about this idea is the fact that it's right there. Mm-hmm. That is a road that many people do visit. I think it is worth exploring how we increase traffic there. I could almost see it being something where if you have a path, you can see a path here, but does it go all the way around the pond?
Yes. Yes and no. There's actually, it's not in the photo here, but if you Google it, there's the park at the back of the pond. There is a little shaded area back there that is also part of our property with shade trees and stuff, but it's kind of the accessibility. It's like you almost have to go through somebody's yard to get to it on the, on the east side of the pond. There's a house over here on this side. And it's like their property has all this vegetation that almost comes directly to the water. So it's not a sidewalk. It's like you have to kind of like duck under their hedges to get back to that side. So you cannot walk the whole way around without kind of like going in someone's property. I'm sure someone might be upset especially that particular neighbor. The other side is a little more accessible, but there's like a chain just for the city maintenance vehicles to get back there and cut the grass and stuff. So it's not, I mean, you can have picnic tables back there too. So there's a lot of possibilities at that location.
Or like a walking trail.
Yes, it would be wonderful to have a walking trail around it, but it's very narrow all the way around. You'll see if you go over and look at it.
Yeah, is it possible for us to make a motion where we say if we're going to lose this money, that we set it aside for a given purpose so that we don't lose it?
How do we move forward? In other words, how do we earmark this money for a project? Do we have to go through city council? Do we have to decide as the board? How do we get this money moving towards something?
I think you're going to need a little bit better, more of a plan on what you want the money to be earmarked for. One of the things I noticed since we've been doing this, something that comes up every now and then, we want to plant things somewhere where they really shouldn't be planted, or the type of tree's not going to sustain itself there. I think to request any money and I may be incorrect at this point, maybe a little early in the process, because we don't really have a direct plan on where that money's going to be spent, how it's going to be spent. Maybe put it on as an agenda item for next meeting, do a presentation. And you may even have to get permission to do something like that too, that we can go into Garden Club. Parks and Rec would probably want to be in there. And then, I don't know if I want to appropriate funds for something that's so preliminary, but we can, I mean, it's a full board.
Well, I know that Tim and Anna are more than willing and excited to do this project, and I know they would do a good job. So it just depends, how do we allocate $250 to have them come down to give us an estimate and a plan? Is that something we could sort of
You need
start
a
with?
consultant to come in right now. That's what you're
that's-
looking for?
Well, they would be the consultants.
That, they are the
Yes,
consultants.
the problem is they'd have to be on a consultant list, just like the last gentleman.
Gotcha.
And I assume that the city works through purchase orders and.
Yeah, I mean, I have to get permission to use our funds. So there, you know, my department manager would have to sign off on anything that we would do. And to be honest, you know, like I said before, I'm still learning about this whole process. Earth Day was relatively simple. When it comes to this larger bucket of funding, I'm a little less.
Could we make it an agenda item, though, to be motioned on? That way we have a plan that is actionable?
I'm not entirely sure I understand what you're asking.
Well, I guess the big question is the city's budget already done? Or are the budget hearings done in September for October?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not aware at this moment, but I can.
I have a question about if we're gonna lose our funding, and that.
Ms. Hagerty, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. If we were worried about not having that money because of our time limitations, wouldn't it make more sense to set that money aside for Tulip Pond, just because we already know for sure that we can use it for that? If it came down to we were gonna lose the money.
I think your question is, instead of allocating the money to this, allocate it to something else that we are sure of. I don't think we have to allocate anything to anything right now, really. No, I don't think we have to really do anything. I think we come back with a report and keep moving forward on it. I think that'd be the way to go.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ms. Bowman.
Do we need to come to some decision if this is something that you all feel comfortable with? Or do you have any more input? I mean, this was just my suggestion, but I mean, if it's something that we want to move forward on, do we need to decide on that as the board?
I think it's part of our scope right now to suggest what you're talking about.
I think we could go on record encouraging it and saying that we all want to move forward on it, and if there is a way possible to spend the $800 that's left over from our Earth Day budget or any other funds that are in the NRB budget towards ascertaining this plan that we can use in multiple ways, then we should at least make that public right now while we're talking about it, to be used whenever we can at the next available moment.
With all due respect, we've only worked our way through a couple of items on here. We don't know what other competing projects might be out there. I think it's too early to be allocating funds dedicated to any particular project without hearing what other demands might be made on our funding. I just don't think that's a prudent move at this point without looking at everything else that's on this list. We're only on item 5. So I think we ought to move on and note that this is a priority, but there may be other things that have higher priorities as we work our way through these. And I think prioritizing will be a coming step in this once we see what other projects are out there.
Do you have any additional comments, Ms. Ware?
I agree, we should get through it all.
Is there any additional comments, Ms. Billman? Okay, we could keep moving forward on that and bring up something forward. If it's money that needs to be allocated, let's make it an agenda item. And this way we can all look at it and have public input on it as well. And we can do that at any time you set the agenda item, whenever you feel ready, Ms. Billman. But we appreciate all the work so far. And let's not put that on the back burner at all. Let's try to get it on the next agenda. City Council has made a note that they want us to get done with this. This has got to be pushed forward. So if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. The only reason I do agree with Dr. Carrier about it is I have a thing about mission creep, just voting for something to keep something going. It expands your mission beyond the initial scope sometimes. But keep moving forward, bring a plan forward, let's vote on it, and let's have public input on the money being spent by the public, and let's get a garden done at Garden Park, if that's what you think would improve all this. Are there any additional comments for goals 5 and 6 for native landscaping for Ms. Billman? And I definitely want to thank you for that work, because that's tough, going out to all this. And this is just the start. So we're getting through this, and we're coming down the long stretch of a 5-year plan. Okay, let's move on to goal 9, tree protection and landscaping ordinances. This is relatively straightforward. It's review code by subcommittee, identify necessary areas to change, choose a consultant, and work with them on the rewrite. This is city staff.
I think the key thing here is, I think when we just talked about this, is to split off the commercial property tree clearing ordinance and the residential tree clearing ordinance. Residential is a lot easier to handle, a lot easier to do. If anybody can figure out the city zoning, please let me know, because I've looked at it and I throw my hands up. I won't even touch it. So right now I'm concentrated on looking at the residential tree clearing and landscape ordinance and seeing if we can do that. And what I'd like you to do with you, Felicia, is that one day when you go out in the field, let's get together and let me shadow you. I'd like to see what your part of the procedure is so that I can incorporate that into any code writing that has to be done. And of course, the good thing about this, I'm not requesting any money.
Well, we do have, good thing is we have a little bit of money to do something with. Is there any questions?
Can I make a comment? So yeah, we can definitely, absolutely, Thomas, get together, and, you know, do a site visit somewhere, and you can, you know, see what it takes as far as me applying the code in practice. And we did talk briefly about the idea of, which is why it's in here, about hiring a consultant for the parts of the code that are really difficult for us to work on ourselves. That may cost funding. That is dependent on what our situation is, what we feel like we cannot tackle. And also, if, as another side note, if there's anything on this list, because I feel like when I was putting together our task list, I felt like I was quite lacking in the goal 9 area. So if there's anything that I should incorporate into this, please do let me know, because it just seems rather scant, and I thought maybe we had discussed more than just those couple of items, but it seems relatively, yeah, scant, like I said.
So if anybody has any suggestions of what they would like to see or what they feel should be in a code, if they send them to Felicia, Felicia will send them to me. This way everything is above board, and, you know, I can incorporate those into what I'm doing.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments for Tom or Felicia? Anybody?
I have a quick question. For the budgeting and for the money that would be required for a consultant, et cetera, that would, we wouldn't expect that to come from the NRB budget, correct? That would be coming from the city budget?
I don't believe that would come from the NRB budget.
Okay, all right.
I like how you protect our budget, Dr. Mosblick.
Well, I mean, because he had said he wasn't requesting
Right.
the funds,
Okay, that's goal 9, tree protection landscaping ordinances. A lot of heavy lifting here, guys. I mean, there's a lot going on here, from reduction of single-use plastics, native landscaping, tree protection, and landscaping ordinances. And all of these are so important. If you cut down all the trees, you're just gonna end up looking like any other city, and it's really tough. It gets hot, you lose a lot of your protections, there's a lot that goes for the trees.
Well, I think the most difficult thing is that the lots here are so tiny.
Yeah.
I know you guys, some of you guys think the lots are big, but 85 by 125, that's a tiny lot. And if you ever notice, the houses they're building now get bigger and bigger and take up more room. You add a swimming pool, a driveway, a septic system. There isn't a heck of a lot of room left for trees.
I kind of like how Indian River County has done it in some of these larger subdivisions. They've used the easements. Now, they kind of use that as linear green space, but they got trees. I mean, you go to Waterway Village and it's tree-lined streets. In 20 years, there'll be beautiful, big, giant trees there. And they're not underneath the utility lines getting wiped out as they get bigger. But that's what we're here to work on. Any other questions for tree protection and landscaping ordinances?
I do have one.
Ms. Billman, go ahead. You go ahead. That's what we're here for.
Well, again, one of my concerns with the trees, we're in a tree city, but we sure cut them down and we don't put them back. And with the new builds, I know that a lot of people, I've driven by new builds, that they have literally taken every single code tree off the property. Either they don't like what tree it is, it's in the wrong place, they're gonna put a pool in, or make their driveway larger. But there needs to be some sort of repercussions for taking out the trees. I've been in other places where if you cut down like a tree that you weren't supposed to or whatever, you have to plant another tree someplace else in the city to take the place of that tree that you took out. So I just get so irritated when I'm walking. It's like walking down a street that has all these new builds and there's not a bit of shade. So when I walk my neighborhood, I always go for the shady side, literally.
You know, that's really a good idea, the one that I had thought of. In New York, we used to have a transfer development rights, where you would transfer development rights from one parcel to another to get higher density. We can have a transfer of tree rights where you don't want the tree on your property, so you gotta go plant it someplace else on one of our private properties that we're trying to beautify, and this way we get free trees.
Mm-hmm. And they're also doing what they call community forests, where they're leaving things intact. I mean, it's habitat, it's shade. I mean, there's so much of the trees being lost for development and everything. Disease, just they don't live forever, so they die. So they need to be replaced. I work for a volunteer group in California called Tree Amigos, and they were so successful replanting city trees along, city streets and stuff like that when they would die. And they would have people that would sort of babysit that tree and make sure it got watered so that it would become part of that canopy. And there's a lot of ways to kind of just bring the trees back. I mean, it doesn't have, I mean, it'd be wonderful if we could put trees straight down US 1, down the center divider. It would slow traffic down tremendously and just make it so pretty. A lot of smaller cities that I've lived in before have done that, where they put bigger trees down the center divider. So, I mean, right now all we have are crepe myrtles. That's about it. But just a thought, because the trees.
No, that was a good thought.
No, that's really fantastic, actually. Thanks for everybody's hard work there. Tree protection is high on our list. We are a Tree City, USA city. Any other comments from anybody on Goal 9, tree protection and landscaping ordinances? Seeing none, I'll move on to Goal 13, city resource conservation. We're just to discuss current procurement of relevant items with facilities staff, identify methods other municipalities have used that may suit our needs, create questionnaire for staff to determine areas for improvement, host a workshop with staff to discuss intentions for changes and implementation methods for input, Develop outreach for staff regarding resource consumption and conservation. Determine current recycling protocol routine for city facilities and develop self-audit for office operations. I see FG next to this.
Yeah, a lot of the preliminary items for this, and admittedly, when there are blanks next to some of these task items, is because maybe I was at a loss for, do I put myself, do I put NRB members? I wasn't sure. But there are a lot of these that require me discussing things with facility staff before we can truly move forward and understanding what's going on here at city facilities. What are we buying? How often are we buying certain items? And what do we need to do in order to actually move forward and make changes? You know, what are the areas that we're even looking at? You know, we could be talking about new light bulbs for light fixtures. We could be talking about paper and things of that nature. So, and we could be talking about water if we're trying to, you know, all around, you know, better our resource consumption. So there are many areas for this particular goal that we could be diving into. And so a lot of that is going to be preliminary research to get us going in the first place.
I seem to recall that we had we did a vote for a program to change over I don't know if it was in planning and zoning. It was an electronic part that we were doing. It was a couple of years ago that was supposed to switch over from the paper process that we were using into more of an electronic process that would streamline everything. It was supposed to save the city in planning and zoning or something along those lines. I didn't know if you knew anything about that.
For all submittals of proposals and such, so they didn't have to keep submitting them. It used to be that they'd have to print the whole thing over and bring it back.
Yeah, that's the program.
So Kim used the money to get that system in place so people could just submit whatever was needed for permits and such electronically. So it was a whole new system.
Yeah, so we do currently use a system where particularly larger contractors can submit electronically, so they don't have to turn in a physical copy. A lot of people still do turn in physical copies, especially for smaller permits, tree removal permits, for example. You know, I'll get either the physical copy or I end up having to take a physical copy myself into the field because somebody took their own copy home with them, you know.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just, there are ways in which, you know, the system has been helping, so if that means anything to you, because a lot of those permits come in and I don't have the original copy that came with it. But then there's also, well, if I need something to scribble on, you know, and I need that site plan in front of me, most of the times I'm going to end up using my own copy of that. So
I'm glad you said that because I remember I used to get submitted plans. I didn't care about the paperwork, but if you didn't give me a paper plan, I had nothing to scribble and mark red all over the place.
And I noticed this is city resource conservation. Is there any chance we can get water refill bottles for city people, whether they're city council people or not, or anybody that are with the city, especially city council people?
I thought we did. Didn't we get sustainable
I'm just making an observation.
Like they look like wooden on the outside?
We had some nice cups that had this sustainable Sebastian, but if not, or just anything, so this way when I'm seeing them or any city employees, if I'm seeing them around, or if I'm watching them on TV, because, I'm just saying.
You want to read this on Facebook about taxpayer money going to pay for cups now?
They said that to us last time we did that, and, but it'd be nice to see them without the plastic bottles, because we also did the refillable stations. That's part of all this and part of the conservation efforts, but that's just a comment. Is there any additional comments on Goal 13 for city resource conservation? And again, we're in the middle of a 5-year process, and I think we're having an effect so far, and we're going to see this to the end. And let's get into our last Goal 16, the Green Infrastructure Plan. And that is send Nikki to Parks field data sheets and corresponding maps. Well, we love maps. Create priority list based on the corridor discussed in the last champion meeting. Visit parks for assessment, visit tracks for assessments, and create cut sheets from field data. Nikki, do you want to comment on that? Dr. Muswell?
Sure, yeah, so I met with Felicia and Ross about 2 weeks ago, and we were going through the map of existing city properties to see what we have available. This includes parks as well as tracts of land that have not really been designated a specific purpose yet. And so I know that Lisa mentioned that as they're developing, I believe it's a stormwater plan, correct me if I'm wrong, they're looking at which pieces of property might be useful for like a retention pond of sorts. And we want to make sure that if these properties are being considered for a retention pond, that they don't have some better purpose in terms of biodiversity serving as a sink for kind of biodiversity to settle in if they're coming from a larger protected habitat, or as a source. So maybe we might have existing biodiversity. So the idea was, as we were meeting, to create a prioritized list, and Felicia has done this already and shared it with me. The prioritized list essentially starts with city properties or city parks, essentially, that we'll visit first, that are closest to our biggest hubs of protected land. And so in the city, that would be the North Sebastian Conservation Area, right over here across from the post office, as well as the Stormwater Park serves as a huge protected area as well. And so what Felicia and I did on Friday is we met at Friendship Park, which is right behind us, and basically adjacent to that North Sebastian Conservation Area, and walked it, just documenting what the status is of current diversity, what we saw in terms of natives versus invasives, what the, and just for example over there, so there was an osprey nest, there were multiple gopher tortoise burrows that looked like they were still active, some that looked like they may have been not as active. One looked like it may have been mowed over, the apron may have been mowed over, so making sure that they're being maintained properly. And on the invasive side, we didn't see too much in terms of invasive plants on the property, larger invasive plants. We saw a lot on the exterior, on the neighboring properties. We did see some of the agama lizards that were running around as well. So just trying to document what's there, what's happening in terms of drainage and potential sources of water pollution. So really trying to create a comprehensive view of what these properties offer for us and how we can continue to utilize them or make them better. And so it kind of goes along with what Sherida was looking at in terms of adding natives. One of the things that Felicia had mentioned is that we have a whole lot of parking lot area. We have a lot of area in the park that is meant for water retention or detention. I'm sorry, I always struggle with the difference between the two. But water can be stored there, at least short term. And what we don't have is those kind of curb cuts. And so the ability to potentially add in things like curb cuts for green infrastructure, as we talked about in that workshop last year, 2 years ago, there's potential there. So really, in visiting these, we're trying to see what we have and protect what we have so it doesn't get taken by a purpose that would be less suited. Sorry, that was a lot, but are there any questions? Yeah.
Wow. I'm so impressed by all you guys, just to let you know. You know, it makes me raise my personal game. I have to be on my toes. Is there any questions for Dr. Muswell?
I have one other thing to add, Nikki, to that. Also, that whole complex back there is a scrub jay habitat. So through the county, so there are, I think there's 25 families of scrub jays that live back there. And the scrub jays, their ideal habitat should not have like tall trees, like the pine trees and stuff, and other properties that the county has. They literally try to eliminate the pine trees because that allows the predator birds, the hawks and the owls and stuff, to see the scrub jays when they come out of their nests, because they're nesting in those low oak scrubs throughout the properties. So that's also another thing too. You don't, I mean, the county will burn sections to kind of keep all that stuff down to make the habitat more, better suited for the jays. But all the other animals that live in there, they will go into the burrows if there is a fire. So it's kind of interesting that the scrub jays and all these animals that live out there, they kind of get out of the way if they do some maintenance and stuff. They have cut tracks through there so we can walk through the trails and everything. So I have friends that monitor these birds out here. So, but the scrub jays are also an integral part because that is a perfect habitat for them back there.
Sharon, I'd like to piggyback off of that. I'm glad you brought that up because one of the big things about that Nikki mentioned was the connectivity and the fact that we have these corridors pre-existing and where, there may be transfer of biological data through these corridors. Maybe there are places where we can, foster more potential scrub jay habitats or make the edge effects of the habitats, less severe for the sake of the scrub jays, or many of the other, protected species that are there. And that's going to be, a key part of that, identifying what's in the surrounding areas of our parks and properties, because we can't forget that, we're the city of Sebastian, but immediately adjacent to us is a county conservation area. And that's, a critical part of this ultimate green infrastructure plan is creating that connectivity, because we're not an island, isolated from everything. And even if we were, there would still be biological connectivity in other ways. So, that's something that's a big part of this green infrastructure plan when we go into any property, even if it's not necessarily next to a conservation area, but just understanding what are the zonings and the future land uses for, the surrounding properties can make a big impact for this plan.
And also another thing that would be nice in doing this with these larger tracts of land is to make the public more aware of what the habitat is. It's not just a bunch of weeds and, stickers. I mean, there's a thriving community in there of animals. And to let them know that this is their one little spot that we've set aside for them, because we've taken away so much from them. So we really have to make them aware that this is really an important part of Sebastian, is to allow these animals to be where they are and not interfere with the way they, that limit them to where they have to stay, because that's where they're going to go. They have to find a place to stay.
Any other comments for Green Infrastructure Plan, Goal 16? Ms. Hagerty, I know you're online at home. Do you have any comments?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Okay, seeing none, I think that wraps up that part of the presentation. And Ms. Gordon?
I do have, just to mention that we still do have your task or your goal, Charles, which is the sidewalks and bikeways and pathways and whatnot. So you and I still have to meet on that front, and then we'll discuss, that portion of the task list going forward. But, once we've done that, then we'll have that for the rest of the board to see as well, and we'll go forward in that regard. And also, being that we've had that meeting with the county already, that's already a step in the right direction for us to understand, okay, the county has something in the works. We've got maps in place that we're developing, and we're gathering the data between Ross and I, and he's been wonderful putting together the actual maps themselves and helping me to identify the areas that are of greatest concern. And having discussions with him going forward is going to be key for this part of the project.
I really thought our sidewalk meeting with the whole county people was our meeting, but we need another meeting for that meeting.
Yes.
Yes, did you hear what I said when you were talking like that? No, I said no, thank you. I'm teasing. Let's move on. Okay, is there any additional questions on Green Infrastructure Plan? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks for everybody's incredible hard work. I know it's something that we may not be that comfortable with. I'm not used to going out and walking all the sidewalks in Sebastian, and there's 31 miles of them, and going to county meetings and getting up in front of people and finding out, what needs to be connected where. And I'm just so proud to be part of this with all of you guys, and I want to thank every single one of you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 9, new business. All right, we got item A, international cleanup for 2023. And I think you have a flyer here. Do you want to go over that?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, in your agenda packet, you'll see a flyer for the International Coastal Cleanup that is coming up on September 16th. I've mentioned it the past few meetings, but I just wanted to go over some more information for you today. For those of you that can be there that day, please make sure you register. And let me know if you will definitely be able to be there. I know, Nikki, you said you would be at a different location, so you won't be with us at Riverview Park that day. But for anybody else, please, if you can, we'd love to have you attend. We'll be assisting Erin Bergman and Kevin from the the IRL, NEP, and Coastal Connections. They'll be our park champions and our site leads. And we are going to, I'm aiming for us to be there around 8 a.m. to help set up, maybe 7:30, between 7:30 and 8 a.m. to help them set up. They asked that all volunteers be at the, all the people who are helping to actually clean up, the participants of the event, that they be there by 8:45 a.m. to check in. The event officially starts at 9 a.m. and it goes until 11 a.m. For the Riverview Park site, we're aiming for the pavilion to set up, and there'll be all the materials and whatnot there ready for, setting up all the materials for the event goers. This year, happens to be a photo contest, so if anybody is interested in participating in the photo contest, you have the opportunity to do that. I believe the prize is courtesy of the Walking Tree Brewery, where also there will be for the first time, an after party after the event. So at 11:30, between 11:30 and 1:30, I believe there is the after party. So I have a copy of the flyer for the photo contest. If you guys would like that, if there's any other information you need from me about the event, please let me know. And yeah, like I said, please make sure you register if you are going to be there, and let me know if you are going to attend so I know how many of you to expect. I'll be there that morning to help out Erin with setup. I have also notified the SRHS's NJROTC, who helped us out at Earth Day, to see if they would be interested in joining us for the event. And then it was also forwarded from NJRTC to the St. Sebastian Youth Ministry, who I guess also like to take on volunteer projects as well. So potentially we'll have some of their students join us as well. Ruth, I was wondering if maybe there'd be a chance you could reach out to the Boys and Girls Club contact that you have and see if maybe they would be interested. And I can send you all the flyers and whatnot. That would be fantastic. And there are currently posts on our City of Sebastian Facebook page. You can also find it through Coastal Connections and also the Ocean Conservancy, who is the international host and the founder of the International Coastal Cleanup. But please share as many of these Facebook posts as you can. You'll see that I have some reoccurring posts on our story as well as just on the page itself. So all that information is on the website with all the links, and we'll see how many people we can get. As of 10 a.m. today, there were 77 spots left for Riverview Park. The way this event works is that they actually create, they have a total for what they think each site will have. So there were 150 allocated towards Riverview Park. As of this morning, there were 77 spots left. So let's see if we can get some more people to come out to the event.
Okay, so that's September 16th, 2023. Register at Riverview Park that day. And
I would suggest registering online.
Register online, okay. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. We did it last year, and we pick up a lot of other people's garbage. And again, I like to keep saying that. I don't see anybody here that throws the garbage out. There's 20,000 residents in Sebastian. I'd like to see 1,000 of them out there picking up garbage. Okay, we'll move on to item B, Sebastian Police Department's Community Night Out. This is an actionable item, so we have something to vote on here. The event details.
All right, so Officer Jursic reached out and asked if you guys would like to participate in the event. The date is Thursday, October 19th, and the event itself runs from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Unfortunately, I have a conference that day and I would not be there to help you guys with setup, and I may not even be there for the majority of the event, depending on what time I get out of the conference. So this would be an item that you guys would take on without me. And so the action item is to decide if you will be participating, and then therefore I can move forward with making sure you guys have whatever you need, any outreach materials, maybe a tent and table and chairs set aside for you guys for the day of that event. The full details include you'd have to be at the park at around 3:45, 4 p.m. to set up in advance. Officer Jerzik did say that he would send out additional information about your designated spot and the map and the location at Riverview Park for the date of the event. So he'll be, keeping us updated, but I did inform him that unfortunately I wouldn't be there, so I would have to find out from you guys first if you would be able to participate.
Well, let's go ahead and just take a vote on it because it's an actionable item. Can we get now we don't have to motion on it, yes or no, but is there a motion to participate in the Sebastian Police Department's Community Night Out?
I can let you know I'm not available that night.
Neither am I, unfortunately.
I'll ask again one more time for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we vote on participation in the Police Department's Community Night
Well,
Out.
you don't have to motion at all, actually.
Oh.
No, if there's no motion, it doesn't carry. We don't have to vote on it. We don't have to say no. It's an actionable item, and we're not going to participate, it doesn't look like. We're not participating, and there's no motion to participate. That's what it looks like.
Works for me.
That's all we need as a board to discuss. Seeing no motion to participate in the Sebastian Police Department Community Night Out, we will ask for a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.